weirdos!
Weird science.
Learn it.
Weird science is the
It's like an exhaustive deep dive.
Welcome all you weirdos, lobotomized space whales, and anyone who's ever hit on a sexy stranger at a cat cafe. Prepare yourselves to receive your 136th Weird Dose of X, the mutant member of your Weird Science podcast family. I am your temporarily nine-fingered host, Jason, broadcasting today from the Weird Science Southern Command on the Gulf Coast of Florida. And with me is a man who was smart enough to know the name of that Gulf, but also wise enough to not get into all that on a comic book podcast. It's my pal Ruben. Hey Ruben, how the heck are you today?
Hey, doing pretty good. I apologize in advance to the audience for any random background noise. It's midwinter break, so I've got a special co-host here, my older daughter, Izzy.
That's great. We're usually a family-friendly podcast, so we'll try to keep I don't know if she can hear what I say. Can she hear what I'm saying? Hi there.
No, okay. I'm wearing headphones, so if she sees me talking.
I won't try to make you do any swearing, at least. So yeah. I can be as filthy as I want to be, but you got to keep it clean. That works. We can do that.
Sure.
So yeah, I am down in Florida visiting my folks again. We've done this a couple times, and one time it totally got lost because there was a giant storm that knocked out like the entire internet here. But I think we should be good to go today. And folks, you already know if it's good to go or not, because if you're hearing this, it worked. And as I said in the intro, I am temporarily without full use of one of my fingers. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I volunteer weekly, sometimes very weekly, at a bird rescue. It's a place that houses about 300 birds, mostly parrots, a couple of turtles, some lizards, some tortoises, but mostly parrots. Parrots there that have been relinquished by their owners for various reasons. So I go there every Friday. I clean up bird enclosures, wash, refill food dishes, that sort of thing. And before I go into this any further, I want to start off by saying it was not Tootsie's fault. She's a very good cockatoo. I was done with my shift, and before I left to go home, I went to visit with Tootsie, who's an umbrella cockatoo, been at the rescue with us for most of a year now. So I was holding her on my left hand, having a nice, fine conversation with her, and then she lost her balance and started to fall. So, Ruben, how do you think a cockatoo tries to catch itself when it's falling?
I'm assuming it uses its beak.
Oh, yes, with its big, strong beak. So that big, strong beak found the base of my pinky finger and clamped on tight. Quite unpleasant, lots of blood. Seems to be no structural or nerve damage.
Yeah,
done,
do you still have a finger?
Nice.
That sounds
still have
like
a finger. It just, I
assume you could lose a finger
it looked like a murder scene. It was horrifying.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. I would have screamed like a... I can't say it because of my daughter.
I was trying to be calm, like saying, "Oh, someone, please come help me. I need some help here. Please help me with Tootsie." The person who actually came to help me and then bandaged me up, she used to work at a big cat rescue. So a cockatoo bite is probably not the worst thing she's ever seen. So it'll be fine. But I've been bandaged up and traveling, and I've had to explain to everyone, "Oh, so what happened to your finger?" I was bitten by a cockatoo. And by the way, Jim, stop laughing at me. It's not funny. It's not nice. You should be ashamed of yourself laughing at me while you edit this. Now, luckily, I don't need all 10 fingers to podcast or to talk about this week's books, which include X-Men number 11, Magik number 2, and Psylocke number 4. But before we get into those, there were a few other mutant appearances this week. For instance, the Alaskan X-Men basically took over Amazing Spider-Man. Did you happen to read ASM this week, Ruben?
No, I haven't been keeping up with that. But tell me about it. You told me there are X-Men in it.
Yeah, so Jim and Matt did not like the book. Folks have probably listened to that podcast already. The idea is that Peter Parker has been so beaten down physically, mentally, emotionally, he just quits, says, "Leave me out of this, even though the world itself is in grave peril." And because it's related to Sidorak, Juggernaut kind of gets his own little Juggernaut senses tingling, and the X-Men step in to do what Spider-Man's not doing. It's a pretty good X-Men issue. Now, Jim and Matt didn't like it at all. I think they gave it like a -7. I don't know. It was a real bad score. They said that Spider-Man would never give up like that. I think it's an interesting concept that Spider-Man is so beaten down that he quits, but I don't know that Joe Casey and company really sold the concept enough where the readers would accept, "Oh yeah, I can see that Peter Parker would fully give up and say, not my problem." But so that's what's going on in Amazing Spider-Man. So if you want to see the X-Men again this week, check over whatever that issue of ASM is. And now, Ruben, I think you read Cable, Love, and Chrome #2. Is that correct?
Yep, I read that one.
I skimmed through it. I didn't see a whole lot that appealed to me. And again, I had a real busy week. So why don't you tell me what happened there?
Yeah, not much. Cable is still in the future, and he is working with Avery Ryder, who's basically a person who's exactly like him, but without the mutant powers. And they're fighting against the Conclave, who has some medicine that they give to society to keep people alive while they have the techno-organic virus, and it's how they control the world, because you need to get that medicine and stave off this terrible virus that everyone has. So they show up and rob a train and basically rescue these people that got some information about the security some security to like a manufacturing plant for the medicine, and they kick some butt like they do, and then Avery starts kind of hitting the terminal phase of the techno-organic virus. And so
sounds
Cable,
almost like Sentinels in a way, that they've got this techno thing in them that's going to eventually do them in.
Yeah, that's a good call. It's basically the exact same thing. So then we get another random, like they successfully steal the prison transport train car that has these people that have like the secret codes to get to the chemical plant that the Conclave uses. And as they're escaping, they get attacked by a sniper, and we see the Cicada character, that mysterious new villain that's like hunting Cable through time.
Right, Cicada. Any other clues as to who Cicada is going to turn out to be? Because I'm pretty sure he's going to turn out to be somebody.
No, not yet. But Cable hooks up with Avery, and then they talk about how she should be benched, but she's like, I'm not going to be benched. I'm going to go out in a blaze of glory. And he says, okay. And so they go to the chemical manufacturing plant, and they run into these, I don't know what you call them, like mutants, basically, the mutant bodyguards. And Cable and Avery fight them and successfully defeat it. And in the process, Cable, I guess, uses too much of his TK and is not focused on containing the techno-organic virus, and it starts to take over his body. And that's sort of the cliffhanger of,
okay.
It's a cliffhanger we've seen like a million times, right? Cable being overrun by the virus.
Yeah, I'm guessing he'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
But a good book, you think, for Cable fans at least?
Cable fans, yeah. It's all right. It's not bad. It's probably more, in my mind, it's like a 6. Nothing you need to read, but if you enjoy Cable, it's worth checking out.
Okay, well, that's enough chit-chat about books we're not actually reviewing today, so let's move on to, well, of course, our Infinity comic, which is Astonishing X-Men Infinity Comic number 11, The Unbeatable Foe, Part 5, written by Tim Seeley, art by Eduardo Audino, colors by KJ Diaz, and letters by Clayton Cowles. And yes, I'm saying Cowles now because I heard Kieran Gillen interview his letterer on Kieran Gillen's own podcast, and he said Cowles, so I figure that's the way to go. So this is the penultimate chapter of this arc, and it has a very clear theme. That theme is, always be yourself, unless yourself is Black Tom Cassidy, and then maybe be somebody else. So as we begin, Captain America and Juggernaut are on board this burning ship that was supposed to transport Black Tom to prison. Putting Black Tom on a wooden ship, probably not the smartest idea, but, water under the bridge. Cap signals a helicopter to stay safely away, and the helicopter pilot listens to Cap. So this is another big theme of this chapter, how it seems like everyone in the world trusts and respects Cap, and how Juggernaut would like a little bit of that trust and respect for himself. So Cap and Juggy make their way down to Tom's holding cell, and try to convince him to use his powers to suppress the fire, and for like half a panel, Tom starts to maybe look like he might help, but then those voices kick in again, and Tom decides that he doesn't see the need to help out anybody else. We get a look at Tom's face at this point, and the black markings and glowing orange eyes tell us this is not the friendly Black Tom from the Krakoan-era X-Force team. In the second half of this chapter, Tom goes on offense. Seems he still has those plant-controlling powers left over from the time he was integrated with Krakoa. So he sends giant seaweed tentacles up after the helicopters, which is a pretty cool visual. Cap is confused. This power is not in Tom's file, but Juggernaut explains the whole Krakoa thing. As the chapter winds down, Juggernaut is fighting the seaweed, Cap is trying to rescue the ship's crew, and we get a peek into Tom's mind. The voice has been telling him to be who you really are and don't let anybody push you around, which can be good advice sometimes, but maybe not in this particular application. And at the very end, Seaweed bearing Tom's own face has entangled Juggernaut and is physically dragging him down to the bottom of the sea, while Tom reminds Juggernaut how this is really nothing new. He's been dragging Juggy down with him metaphorically for ages. So I thought this was another strong chapter. Strong action, some strong character work, themes of change and redemption and respect and friendship. There's a lot to cram into a single chapter of Infinity comic, but here it's done pretty deftly. Eduardo Audino's art is particularly strong in those later parts when he shows us Black Tom acting and speaking through the seaweed. So this story is to be concluded next issue, and I really don't know which way Black Tom is going to go. So, Ruben, what did you think of this issue, and what do you think Black Tom is going to do by the end of the next chapter?
Yeah, I liked it. It's I don't know. I haven't been that thrilled by this arc. I guess I don't like these characters that much, but it's a fine little story, and I kind of have a feeling like Black Tom's just going to be a villain at the end of this, and Juggernaut's going to be a hero. That'll be it.
That would be kind of a poignant moment to see these two have been buddies for so long, decide to go separate ways. I can't see Juggernaut going, Black Tom says, hey, let's be bad guys again, and Juggernaut, I don't think would go along with that. I think he's too integrated with like the actual X-Men and the X-Men book, for instance. But yeah, I'm enjoying this, and once again, I think this is certainly worth reading for those of you who have the app. Okay, moving on to our next book, which is the first physical book we're doing this week, X-Men number 11, Live Capture. Written by Jed MacKay, pencils by Netho Diaz, inks by Sean Parsons, colors by Fer Cifuentes Sujo, and letters by, once again, Clayton Cowles. The cover by Ryan Stegman and Company shows the X-Men being chased by like a giant dragon, snake creature. Looks very exciting. Doesn't exactly work out that way in the actual book, but looks good on the cover page. I really like the way that he draws Temper's ice slide and Magik's oversized sword overlapping to form like a subtle X shape. The Stegman guy's pretty good at covers. So last issue, we wrapped up the aftermath of the raid on Greymalkin crossover. This issue starts something apparently entirely new, although we have a ton of loose ends that we got to get back to it sometime, right? Let's see, what are some of these loose ends? I got them written down here. We've got Agent Lundquist and the Office of National Emergency. We have 3K, Cassandra Nova, her group of weirdos who are making older people into mutants. We have Cyclops and his PTSD or anxiety, if we're ever going to get back to that. We've got that little kid who thought she was a mutant, tested as not being a mutant, but then her arm turned all mutant-y when she was sleeping. We've got Magneto and his RLDS situation, and we have Magik playing chess, possibly with her brother. So that's a whole lot of balls to keep in the air here. And while this is a really good chapter, I think, I'm starting to worry that Jed MacKay is leaving too many loose ends. But maybe he'll bring it all together. How about you, Ruben? Do you have faith that Jed MacKay is going to bring all these cool concepts together, or are we going to drop some along the way?
I actually have faith. It's been getting better in my mind each issue. And so right now I'm feeling pretty positive. I actually really like this issue, and it's starting to feel to me like a fleshed out X-Men comic. I mean, balls in the air is X-Men, right? Like that's sort of what you're signing up for.
It's very Claremont in that sense, yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be important that he starts. I guess we need to see him close out a few of these so we can have more faith. But for now, I'm just going to trust that he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I enjoyed the chapter, but just at the end, I started saying, oh, what about this and this and this? And my list just kept getting longer and longer until I realized, wow, there's really a lot going on here. So we'll see what happens. So at the start of this issue, the X-Men are hanging out at the factory. Beast is talking to Jennifer Starkey, that fish-faced lady who was seemingly turned into a mutant by 3K, and Beast has Jen try something out. He asks her to visualize flying, and she does, and then she goes from being a fish face to having like wings and feathers and claws. So it looks like her mutant power has to do with adapting to the environment. She's not essentially a fish lady. She's more like Darwin or Lifeguard, that kind of thing. And I really
it seems like she has to focus on it, right?
Yeah, so slightly different, not as strong probably those characters, at least not right now, but something in the adapts to your situation power. But I really like how the voice that Jed MacKay uses for Beast in this scene, right? It feels very 1980s, very gentlemanly nerd. really good stuff. I'm enjoying having this beast back. I enjoyed the evil beast of Krakoa, but this is a real nice contrast as well.
Yeah, this is the one I like. Which is funny because I think if we hadn't had Evil Beast, I'd be like, oh god, Beast, so boring as a character. But I gotta
It's
find
a nice
it refreshing.
throwback, yeah.
Yeah.
So this scene is interrupted by an emergency. We hear that a spaceship of some kind has crashed to Earth on Canadian territory, and someone or something from that ship is now headed directly towards Merle, Alaska. The X-Men rush out to meet it before it gets close to town. We're told that they're using Kate Pryde's Marauder ship and that Kitty might be mad when she finds out that Quentin salvaged it. Have we seen any backstory here about what would have happened to the Marauder's ship? It feels like we've skipped something, but maybe I didn't read something. Any idea?
Well, I have a feeling you were supposed to read Marauders with Steve Orlando,
right.
and maybe that would have explained it, but ain't nobody got time
that
for
second
that.
Marauders series for Krakoa that we dropped. Maybe. We'll assume it happened there. So the team here that heads out on the mission is Cyclops, Quentin, Psylocke, Magik, Temper, and Juggernaut. And the mood is very, very light. No one seems all that worried. I mean, Scott's intense, but he's always intense, at least when he's in public. Like Magik and Juggy are playing cards. It looks like Temper's maybe taking a quick nap. Scott even makes a joke about awarding points to Temper for making a smart deduction. And for the rest of the issue, there are more jokes about Magik and Juggernaut wanting these fictional, useless points too. Pretty funny. Not laugh out loud funny, but, amusing enough.
Yeah, it's like nice character work. They're starting to banter, and the team seems a little more cohesive than maybe it did initially.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess works for me, right? Like they just went through like a major mission, and you would expect them to be a little tighter after having gone through that.
It's not the same tone as we had in the Greymalkin arc, which was very serious and kind of very angry. It just kind of signals that, yeah, we're all kind of having fun here. There's going to be some excitement, but don't worry too much. No one's going to get killed here. So Magik interfaces with the X Drive to teleport the team right to the Invader, which is handy. She's done that before in this series, in issue 2. They make radio contact with the Invader, who turns out to be Corsair, Scott's dad, who we most recently met in the pages of Phoenix.
Yeah, I like the visual of this too, by the way. It's sort of arbitrary, but I don't think the Marauder is that interesting of a ship, but when it just like pops out of nowhere and you've got like a skull-faced vessel coming at you, I was like, whoa, that's pretty intense.
You even get these little lines around Corsair's head like, well, what? What's going on? And the thing he's riding, it looks more like a Star Wars, like a land speeder than anything X-Men, but pretty cool looking. And I like the way that Corsair is written here. I mean, in Phoenix, he was written like a total irredeemable jerk. Here, he's more like a lovable, rapscallion, maybe even. So I kind of like the way he is here. Magik, though, is already mad at him, wants to fight. She holds a grudge. This grudge dates back 5 years, real-world time, all the way at the very, very beginning of the Krakoan era, in 2019's New Mutants #1 by Jonathan Hickman. In that issue, Corsair tricked Magik and the rest of the New Mutants into helping him steal a brood king egg. And then when things got hairy, he abandoned all of them to the tender mercies of the Shi'ar justice system. So, Magik, you've got a point here. That wasn't a very nice thing to do.
I really like that.
Did you remember that? Because I had to go look it up.
Yeah, I knew I knew they interacted, but I didn't understand it. And I was like, yeah, let me see why she might be so pissed. But I really appreciate that, right? Like that is a realistic reaction given that he like literally screwed them over. So it's just like a quick little character beat, but it makes it feel more like part of a bigger narrative, which I really appreciate.
Absolutely. So breaking up this fight takes a little time. And in that time, another ship is heading from space towards Merle, Alaska. It's a lobotomized Akanti space whale, and, it's here already. This is what Corsair was trying to tell his son about before he got punched in the face by the former Demon Queen of Limbo. I wonder, though, couldn't Corsair have radioed ahead, sent an email? Because the whole story here is he wants to give some message, and the message never gets through. I wonder why he couldn't just, tell them a different, faster way. But that's the story. It's fine. They bring Corsair onto the Marauder. He still doesn't get to say what he wants to say. Instead, it's time for a combination chase scene and fight scene. And Temper really comes off as a badass here, right? She's the new member of the team. She's really basically, power-wise, like Iceman and the Human Torch in one. She creates a giant blast of fire that cooks large section of the Akanti. poor thing. We get a brief peek onto the Conti craft itself, and there are Skull and Badoon crew members. They talk about a payday and needing this summer's creature alive.
Can I tell you a cool thing about
Please.
Temper that I just recently learned?
Absolutely.
So I've been reading Generation Hope, and that's sort of, I guess, maybe where her origin takes place. And her power is not just fire and ice, which is kind of what I thought it was. She's more of like a temperature balancer, so she can take the cold and create heat, or take heat and create cold.
Okay.
So she pulls and pushes from both sides. So when she's talking about, being in Alaska with all the snow and, that essentially being like supercharging her powers, it made like perfect sense. So another nice, nod from McKay, although maybe it would have been nice in this X-Men comic to explain that a little bit more, because there are a lot of people that are not going to go back and read something like that.
Cool. Now, I wonder, like physics-wise, I'm not quite sure that works, but it's a comic book. I wonder, like, what temperature is just, like, right in the middle for her. Like, I can't go either way with this. It's, like, just perfectly lukewarm 0 point.
Yeah, like she's no good in Florida.
This bath water is just, I can't do anything with it. It's 0.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, here she is, she's really the biggest force here fight-wise. Let's see. So the X-Men teleport onto that ship, the Akanti whale ship, for some more fighting. And finally, we get some clarity here. The interstellar mission isn't here for Corsair, right? The X-Men thought we're fighting to, prevent Corsair from being captured. But they're here for Scott Summers himself. And that's where the issue ends. So, Ruben, any guesses why the Kree-Skrull Empire might be after Cyclops?
The thing that came to mind was maybe it's a Phoenix thing. Like,
maybe
he's the, husband of Jean. And I was kind of wondering if it's not really the Kree-Skrull. They just said it like they've been chasing us since the Kree-Skrull. I was like, maybe this is the Galactic Council, right?
Yeah,
the Galactic Council was like
it is
trying to figure out how to deal with Jean. So I kind of was predicting that maybe this is like a Phoenix crossover. We just don't know it yet.
That would be cool if the books really were working together that way. I was really thinking more like last issue where Scott said to Agent What's-His-Face, Lundquist, you better not do anything bad to me or like my wife will get really mad and come get you. So I'm wondering if these aliens are also worried about, from the other direction. Oh, they want Scott for some other reason. Do they have to worry about the Phoenix coming and killing them all?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cliffhanger. We don't know who they're after. Well, there is actually, I thought originally that was the end of the issue because it looks like a perfect end of the issue splash page cliffhanger, but there's actually a few more pages. And the real final cliffhanger is the arrival of Alpha Flight, who are operating under the authority of Department H, which is interesting. We'll come back to that. And they're here to support the X-Men because they say the original crash was on Canadian territory. But the most interesting thing is the composition of the Alpha Flight team. We have as the leader Vindicator, who sure looks like Heather Hudson.
Yes, that's definitely Heather. There's no way that's not Heather.
Wasn't she in a coma last time we saw her?
Yeah, because she had taken the
magic teleporter sword. I forget the name of it. She overused
that one character
it.
who's like an assassin and evil. Yeah, and she burned herself out with that power. She got better.
Apparently, she looks.
She
quite
got
healthy.
some of that high quality Canadian healthcare.
Oh, that's the Doctor Doom book. That's Jim and Matt's problem. So also Guardians here, who again I'm just going to say presumably because maybe there's a change, but presumably this is James Hudson.
Yeah, it's got to be.
We also have Puck, and nobody else looks like Puck. We have that must be Snowbird as that eagle there.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Can I interject on that one point?
Please.
So historically, like Snowbird, if she left Canadian territory, her powers like decreased and she had problems. So I'm going to call shenanigans on this point. Like if they're in Alaska now, she shouldn't actually be able to do what she's doing.
Interesting. Is that like tied to like the political borders of Canada? Like if the War of 1812 had gone differently, like 54-40 and fight, she wouldn't have had to.
I see.
I'm wondering what.
That's a good question. I don't know if any writers actually delved into that, but yeah, there's this in one of the early Alpha Flight issues. She goes to New York and like not really knowing that she had these limits on her power, and she like really got screwed over. Basically, almost died.
I guess they are. Does it say specifically that they're in Alaska at this point? Because we know they were in Alaska.
Yeah,
the crash was in the
maybe
Yukon
they're close
territory,
enough
Canada.
to Canada that it's not
Could be. It's
not
it's on the
fully
border.
depowering.
Interesting. But yeah,
I imagine
these-
they're not going to touch on that. Or maybe Alaska's like, maybe it's less of like, within Canada and more of like an
Culture.
equator thing. Keep
Like
yourself above
anywhere
certain
near
equator point.
within 50 miles of a curling club, she's fine.
Yeah.
If there's poutine around, no problem. All that good stuff, something like that. But really, my big question is, most of these people were like in jail last time we saw them for defying Department H because they were smuggling some mutants into space when Canada, Department H, was very pro-Orcus, very anti-mutant. So, what? I'm wondering how that was all reconciled. I kind of feel like I would have want to see like an issue somewhere explaining how that all happened. But I hope they explain it and don't just hand wave it away as, oh, we're Alpha Flight, we're back again. Because that was a very interesting cliffhanger or conclusion to that last Alpha Flight miniseries. And we like that series a lot, and I want to see how we got from there to here.
Yeah, maybe the
Plus-
Box Sentinels will show up. I still want to
Yeah.
know what happened to those.
Roger Box Jr., where are you at? Because are you now pals with Alpha Flight? Did you reconcile? Are you now on the outs because you were too anti-mutant? Lots of questions. Maybe those questions will be answered in issue 12. I really hope so. But this issue 11 was a ton of fun. A nice change of pace, bringing in some aliens, nice lighter tone to it. Netho Diaz continues to give us some really cool action scenes. That false ending splash page of Scott surrounded by the aliens completely fooled me. In fact, even as we were going through it, I forgot there was more afterwards. I was ready to wrap up. But yeah, I love like even earlier on, Beast hanging upside down, talking to Jennifer Starkey. Looks great. So even though he's not like the main artist on here, and Ryan Stegman is, Netho Diaz doing a hell of a job. Very much looking forward to the next issue. Happy to have Alpha Flight in the book. Curious to learn just what it is that Scott is supposed to have done. So I'm going to give this 8.5 out of 10. Really good issue of X-Men. How about you?
Yeah, I loved it. I'll go 8.5 as well. I do want to complain about something that I've complained about many times, though. This is the only thing that keeps me kind of annoyed. So I've been wondering what has been working with Psylocke sword or how it works, and I made a joke that I thought it was basically just a lightsaber. And in this issue, we kind of see that confirmed. She's at one point holding like the hilt, and the the top part is like an X, and it's like there's no blade. So
okay.
it is like a lightsaber.
Do you think it makes that same sound?
Yes, it absolutely does. I
when
guess
I was a kid, we played Star Wars all the time as kids, and we tried to hit each other with sticks, and we all made that sound. It was necessary. Otherwise, your lightsaber doesn't work if you don't make that sound.
Yeah, she's got that handler kid right in her like solo series, so maybe he made it because I know he gave her those. Like I don't know what
Sure,
things,
I forget what
kunais or whatever they were. The things
is,
yeah. But anyways, I just was like, seriously, the thing actually isn't even. I thought maybe it was just a sword and she was like projecting her psychic powers over it, but no.
Oh, well, at least we got some clarity on that.
Yeah, so how is it cutting again? Anyways, it's my forever
It's just what
complaint.
it does now. I don't think we're ever going to get actual like official here at canon why it works that way and when it wasn't supposed to. But that is X-Men number 11. We'll talk about Psylocke again in a few minutes. But first, we're going to talk about Magik number 2, Descent. Written by Ashley Allen, Germán Peralta, colors by, that was art by Germán Peralta, colors by Arthur Hesley, letters by Ariana Mayer. And last time, we set up a few things about how this book is going to work. We were reintroduced to Magik's dark side, the Dark Child, that comes out under certain not super well specified conditions. I really wish the first issue, or even the second one, made it clearer why the Dark Child is emerging again now. I know this has been part of her character in the past, but Magik went through a whole lot during Krakoa, for instance, and there was no hint of this dark side there. So I would have liked to see some incident or something happen to her that said, oh, now this part of me that was under control is no longer under control. It just seems like we needed some reason to make this come out again. We also set up that there's this demon named Liminal who's currently bound via 5 seals, or I guess we broke one of the 5 seals last issue. I was confused.
Just one, yeah.
Just
one.
So this Liminal guy is kidnapping mutants, specifically as a means of breaking those seals. Over the course of the first issue, a mutant girl named Ren was killed. and so was a spooky old woman who had some magic abilities. At the end of the book, Magik teamed up with the woman's grandson, Cal, to try to defeat the demon and to maybe get some of those kidnapped mutants back. Oh, and Cal has his grandmother's notebook, which may be helpful in the fight, and which also contains a picture of Magik as Darkchild. And I know at some point during this review I'm going to say Wild Child instead of Darkchild. Ruben, you have to call me if I do that. This is Darkchild. Wild Child is an entirely different mutant.
Yeah, that's Canadian stuff. This isn't taking place in Canada.
That's the Canadian stuff. It's metric. It's totally different.
Did the artist change in this issue? I didn't look back.
I don't think so. I think, no, it was Peralta the whole time.
Yeah, I think I like the art better in the first issue.
It's a different artist for Psylocke, but the same one for Magik.
Yeah. Maybe it's just like the art style is better suited for like dark art, but it just didn't look quite as good, in my opinion, in the Tokyo scenes.
Yeah, he definitely has a style that definitely works for doing demons and nighttime and spooky stuff going on. Not as much for daytime in Tokyo. So this issue I thought was kind of okay. Basic concept is fine, right? Prevent the demon from rising, work with this kid who knows some stuff. Just the nuts and bolts, panel-to-panel writing wasn't that great. For instance, like you said, we start off in Tokyo, Japan, right nearby the Tokyo Sky Tree, which is that Eiffel Tower, but white and orange looking thing. They're in a cat cafe called Kuroneko, which means black cat. We're here because Cal says that he knows the next seal has to be here in Tokyo, but we're never told where that information comes from. Does he have a feeling? Is it in the notebooks? We're just here because... but it doesn't say that. It says the next seal has to be here. I just know it.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Okay. Good point.
It's just little things like that make me throw me out of this book over and over again.
Yeah, isn't there a point where Magik's like, "Oh, I took you here because I needed you to lighten up" or something like that?
Yeah,
that is kind of weird. And then he's like, "Oh, the seal's here."
Yeah, I think she means this cat cafe. Like we came to Tokyo because it's the portal, but the cat cafe because you need to chill out.
Okay, makes sense.
Again, kind of just these little bits of the writing that's not as clear as it could be. And another weird thing is they're hanging out there, and does Magik get hit on by this waitress, Haruhi? Is that what's going on?
Seems like it. Yeah, that was what I gathered.
Because I thought maybe she was an existing character. I tried to look her up in the wiki. Haruhi hasn't appeared before, and I'm not super familiar with Japanese culture, but the waitress at a cat cafe hitting on a customer, asking her to go to a concert after work, seems weird. I know Magik is a sexy lady and all, but weird thing to happen. And also just the way that they agree that Magik isn't interested until Haruhi mentions, oh, there's been some disappearances in the area, which again, a weird thing to say if you're trying to invite somebody out on a date. But that's how they get to this location. Again, it feels like the writer needs them to go to this concert, but didn't really come up with a convincing way to get them there. So it just kind of happens.
So this isn't consistent with your cat cafe experiences in the past. Is that what you're saying?
it just doesn't seem like how Japanese like service culture works.
Oh yeah, no.
That I mean, not that I'm an expert. I've seen several anime on the topic, so clearly I'm an expert. But I'm just saying that at a human level, it doesn't seem like the way human beings interact.
Yeah,
and I've been a human being for several decades.
Yeah.
So to speed things up,
as a joke, I saw that it kind of made me laugh because I'm trying to get to a cat cafe here in Seattle.
Oh, really?
I'm not above cat. Yeah, I've got like my 4-year-old is like obsessed with cats, and I'm like, we're not buying a cat, but maybe I could take you to a cat cafe. So it's either going to make it worse, and I will eventually cave and buy a cat, or she'll get scratched, and then that'll be it. And we can put this thing to end.
A cat cafe opened in my fairly small town in Rhode Island not so long ago, which it's in one of those locations that every 3 months is an entirely different business. Like nothing, there's certain locations that just keep cycling through things. And all I know about them is that they had some like regulatory problems because they had so many cats there. They actually had to register as a rescue, which they had.
Interesting.
So it's
interesting.
So if you're out there, you're planning on starting a cat cafe, make sure you have all your paperwork in order.
Yeah.
And train your staff not to hit on the clients.
Those are important things. I really like cats, but in my old age, I've become like terribly allergic, which sucks because
Oh.
I kind of grew up with cats. And now I just can't handle them. But
Mhm.
I imagine this is going to be like complete like hell when I go there. But maybe there's some combination of allergy meds I could take to preempt the problem for a few hours.
Well, as we've discussed, our family are bird people and cat people don't really mix so much.
No.
Different things.
Makes sense.
Anyway, to speed our way through this story a little bit, the band starts up. Cal's dead friend Ren is playing lead guitar, but now she's a demon and her sound-based powers are even stronger, and she summons more demons. Magik fights and kills a bunch of demons, although she says that all these demons used to be mutants, and I don't know how she knows this. She just says it. Also, the people in the crowd, at first, they look like they're gonna run away, which, if there's a demon fight and people being killed in front of me, I would leave. But then they all just kind of stick around and hang out in the background for what seems like a very long time. They're standing right next to a door with a bright green exit sign on it, but nobody is leaving. I don't get that. The whole fight scene is kind of awkwardly written. There are stretches where Magik and friends have these extended conversations while Ren and the demons just kind of stand around waiting for them, doing nothing. There's a bit where Cal tries to help by talking about frequencies and wavelengths, and I even know what equation they're trying to reference here, but they get it all backwards and inside out, so that made my head hurt. But Magik, of course, turns into the Dark Child, then she stops being the Dark Child, then she kills the demon version of Ren, and at the end, she falls through a portal, and in the final panel, she meets Liminal face-to-face. So, yeah, for me, I thought the book looked pretty cool. I'm a fan of Germán Peralta's spooky style. Like you kind of say, it doesn't work as well in the sunlit scenes, but once they get
to the concert, it looks good. I think this art style is like really solid in like, dark environments, but it looks a little funky and maybe like too few details in the sort of bright areas. But yeah, I agree. Once it's in the fight scene, I think it's fine. And I know you called the fight scene clunky, but I still felt like it was kind of cool in some respects. I enjoyed when Magik has these like magical arms busting through and grabbing things.
Yeah, individual panels look very cool. It's just I tried it in my mind, what's happening, how does it all flow together? And it was very start and stop. And it was almost like in a video game where certain bosses don't activate unless you're within however many pixels of them. And if you back off, they just stop moving. That's what it felt like here. It didn't feel organic that way.
The cliffhanger's a little weird too. You say she meets Liminal, right? Because it seems like she defeats the demon and then the portal opens. So I think it's Liminal like pulling her into wherever he is to talk to her. But did you notice that her sword is like flickering, like her soul sword?
Okay, yeah.
So it's like doing something with her soul just by being near Liminal. That seems pretty interesting.
I hadn't noticed that. That is kind of neat. Yeah, I don't know if that's just how they chose to draw the sword here at the end, but it looks pretty intentional. It's not that solid white lightsabery sword as usual. It's kind of a flickering flame. Yeah, it could be kind of cool. But to wrap up, I thought for me that the events just were too random. The dialogue was too clunky for me to really enjoy it. I like looking at the pretty pictures, and the fight scenes are okay for the most part. So I'm giving this a 5.5 out of 10. How about you, Ruben? I think you're probably higher on this than I am.
Yeah, I'm a little higher. I'm going to say like maybe 6.2, 6.3. I think the fight scene, you call them clunky, I think they're fun. I liked the last, issues fight scene as well, but I agree, like writing-wise, there's a lot of like elements that are just sort of not quite right. It just kind of gets you from point A to point B.
Down. All the pieces are fine, just the linkages are just, if you think about it too hard, you go, well, that doesn't really work, does it?
Yeah. In my mind, this, I'm not familiar with this writer, but it seems like somebody who could be great with a few, just a little bit more polish, but we're not quite there yet, right? Like this is like high quality amateur, not,
right, and
top level stuff.
We really liked her Blood Hunt Magik issue, if you recall, that one set in Russia with the Russian folklore character. So I don't know if she had more time with that, if she had a different editor. I have no idea how these things work. I'm not even going to speculate. But yeah, that book was solidly written. This feels like somebody who needs just to have some rough edges, polished up a little bit and could be telling a really good story. So not my favorite, but it very well might get better. Moving on to our final book of the podcast, which is Psylocke number 4, A Deadly Display, written by Alyssa Wong, art by guest artist Moises Hidalgo, colors by Fer Cifuentes Sujo, and letters by Ariana Mayer. And this is a very simple issue. Psylocke breaks into Ty Hanover's creepy mansion, does some sneaking around, does some fighting, and then she gets caught. That's the whole issue. Not badly done, but there's not a whole lot to it. To remind folks of our story, Psylocke came back to her room at the X-Men's factory headquarters to find her boyfriend's arm nailed to her door. And along with this came some creepy blue butterflies and some creepy robots with dead animal bits nailed to them. With the help of Sebastian Shaw's creepy son Shinobi, she determined that the source of all these gifts must be a super creepy dude named Ty Hanover, a childhood acquaintance of Shinobi who has a rare genetic disease and is really, really into taxidermy. So now she's sneaking into his house to see what is up. We see her use her new favorite weapon to take out some drones, that ninja kunai blade that works like Yondu's arrow from Guardians of the Galaxy. It takes several hits to bring this drone down, so clearly it would have alerted Hanover to her presence, but she still acts like she's being super sneaky here. She sneaks into the house through a window that has clearly been left open for her. Inside, there's some more creepy taxidermied animals, plus some more robots with animal parts for her to fight. And I think at this point is when she starts to hallucinate. Later on, we find out that the butterflies conveniently produce a hallucinogenic dust, which must be why she thinks she sees a reflection of herself that looks like Betsy Braddock's body. Then she sees a baby in a jar that calls her mama, which must be a callback to her lost child from the Hellions run. And then she thinks she fights Betsy Braddock herself. I really hope that we're not going to go down the route of Canon still fighting for her identity with her image of Betsy, because we've already moved on from this. We already know who Psylocke is, right?
I'm Cuddle.
She's
Yeah,
Canon.
I don't need another story that's like, who am I? Am I Quanon or Betsy, right?
Am I Betsy? Am I just a weapon? I don't need that.
Yeah, the character's got to be more than that, right? Like some writer needs to take like, a bit of a daring stance, right? Or otherwise stop writing this character. Like,
I almost wish they just dropped the Psylocke name, because the Psylocke name is so tied, and for a lot of people, to when Betsy was in this body, right? That if we want to make this character her own thing, either call her Canon, which I guess is complicated because the way they spelled her name was a little confusing. Give her a different name. Give us some reason to think this is a cool character besides, oh, wasn't she the one who was body swapped with Betsy? But yeah, that's what we're getting right here. At the end of the issue, Hanover zaps her with knockout darts and then pins her to the wall as if she's one of his butterflies. Which, hey, I thought that was a pretty cool creative image, right? The idea that she's long been associated with butterflies. That's the thing we use to illustrate her psychic powers. He loves collecting butterflies, and now she's part of his creepy collection. It's also neat that the canes he uses are shaped like oversized versions of the pins that hold insect specimens in museum collections. Again, feels a whole lot to me like he should be a DC villain, but here he is in the Marvel Universe, and that's kind of fun. That's the end of this issue, and the tagline says, "To be concluded," so this arc is going to finish up in issue number 5.
or this book. I know it won't, but it feels like it
has
be.
been. Yeah, it has been solicited for issue 6, and the solicits, of course, are always vague on purpose. But it was talking about, who is her real self? Who is Psylocke? So I'm afraid it's going down that route. Art here is fine. Maybe a half step down from what Vincenzo Caruto had been giving us. One thing I really liked in prior issues was we'd always get at least one splash page or big panel where we get these multiple issues of Psylocke here, there, everywhere, just kind of showing us how fast, agile she is. And we don't get that in this issue, which I kind of missed. Other than that, I mean, it looks good. It's just because I'm expecting that kind of a signature thing in this book and we don't get it, I feel like I'm missing out a little bit.
I'd like to see Devin show up in the X-Men book.
Mm-hmm. That's Psylocke's person in a chair.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a human too, right? Like, you don't have a lot of non-mutants working with the X-Men. I wonder what even Cyclops would think about that.
That is an interesting question. It doesn't feel like this book is feeding at all back into X-Men. It feels very much way off on the side, but I like a coherent universe, so I'd enjoy it if we got some references to how it actually all is happening more or less at the same time.
Oh, here, more on the lightsaber theory. I'm flipping through this again.
Sure,
There's a scene where we see a flume written over the sword. I guess it's like extending So it is.
Some of the action things, the swoopy graphics and the sound effects, just a little bit clunky in this issue, I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, this wasn't a bad issue. One thing I thought that was kind of cool is when the psychic link between Psylocke and Devin was interfered with by this creepy dude. It kind of looks cool in that the speech bubble or the psychic communication bubble is all like partially rubbed away, almost like it's kind of erased or rubbed away by something. I thought that looked very neat. Was a cool way of getting that concept of, prevented communication happening. But that was good. So, Ariana Mayer, you might not like Jim so much, but I thought that was a cool play for this lettering balloon. Again, an okay issue. Not bad, just not memorable. Just she's sneaking around, fighting some stuff. We're getting into the of the mind things at the end, which always feels to me like writers kind of cheating a little bit, because you can write anything and it doesn't matter because it's a hallucination, it's of the mind. And I'm really waiting for Alyssa Wong to make the case that Psylocke is a strong enough character to really carry a solo title. Why should I care about this character in particular out of all the dozens of characters currently active in the X-Men universe, the hundreds of characters that have been over the course of history? Why should this one get her own title? What's so cool about her? And I still don't really know. So because of that, I'm going to give Psylocke number 4 a 6 out of 10. How about you?
Yeah, it's a character I kind of historically love, so I'm a little disappointed that we're just going back to the old trope of, who am I? Like, I can't believe I was out of my body for so long, and it's kind of disappointing. So I'm going to be a little bit more down. I'm going to say maybe this is my 5/5 issue, but it's not bad. It's a decent action story. It just, again, doesn't seem to be going anywhere or doing anything that's going to be, impactful for her story. Like, it's not even going into the Wikipedia in my mind, right? Like, what is going to happen in here that everyone's going to be like, oh, wow, you got to go back and read this miniseries to see, this.
Yeah, this is, if you picked up this issue completely out of the blue, hadn't read any prior issues of Psylocke, maybe didn't even know much about the X-Men, it's a perfectly fine, here's some cool action pictures to look at kind of comic book. And, hey, there's a place for that in the comic book world. It's just not what I come to X-Men comics for. Okay, that is the last book that we needed to talk about this week. So, Ruben, have you looked ahead to what's coming out next week?
No, is this the week where we have like a bajillion issues?
Oh my goodness. So what we have, you're sitting down. I hope you're sitting down. We have Mystique number 5 of 5. So that's a huge book.
Okay, yeah, I want to read that.
We have Uncanny number 10.
Yeah, I still want to read that. That sounds good. Yep.
We have the third flagship book, Exceptional X-Men number 6.
Okay, you're losing me.
Okay. Storm number 5, with Dr. Doom.
Yeah, okay.
X-Force number 8. I actually
I don't even know what the hell's going on in X-Force. I'm like thinking about the storylines, and I'm like, okay, I remember the first.
We kind of wrapped up a storyline. I forget where we are. Yeah, so we'll have to see what's going on there.
Surge is back. Is that what it is? Do you think she's still going to be in the character profiles page?
Still crossed out? I'm going to say she's still crossed out there.
Okay.
Yeah. We have X Factor number 8, which I think is also a Doom crossover book.
Oh God. Well, maybe it'll be better because of that Doom crossover.
Could be. I think Archangel is back as the leader, so maybe that'll be fun.
Yeah.
We have NYX number 8. Again, I put the big books up front.
Yeah, is that a Doom crossover?
I don't think so. I don't think so yet.
Are we going to have more breakdance fighting?
Oh, I hope so. Do I? Oh, I didn't. I don't have that drop, unfortunately. All I have is this one.
I'm Cuddle.
I knew we were doing that. Okay. And finally, we have Weapon X-Men number 1. And Weapon X-Men is that weird team book that has like Chamber and Wolverine and just a wacky team. So maybe that'll be good. Maybe it won't.
Yeah, that might be interesting. I'm interested in checking that one out. So issue number 1, right? So it's piquing my interest. I mean, that's a lot of books, but I'd say 5 of those I'm excited for. So
there's also Laura Kinney Wolverine number 3 next week, but we already dropped that after 2. So if you're still reading that, it's coming out. We won't be talking about it because we already have 8 books to talk about. That's 1 1/3 plethoras for all you math majors out there. And yeah,
I'll read it and I'll tell you if there's anything worth mentioning, but probably
definitely
not.
We'll talk about the big books. Of course, we'll talk about Mystique and Uncanny and Storm. And I don't know, maybe we'll do like a lightning round where we put like 1 minute on the clock for each of the other books and just make sure we talk about them. But we're not going to do a 12-hour show in the mold of like Jim and Eric DC in years past. But
Yeah.
some really cool books coming out next week. We've had a few weeks now where we haven't had a lot of books, and here's where it all comes due. So Ruben, I'm sure all our lawyer listeners have a ton of these books on their pull lists. But between now and Wednesday, when those books come out, what do you think they could do to pass their time if they're not here in sunny Florida with me?
Yeah, you can read more X-Men comics.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is
I
the
like it though. I listen
revolution.
to it every week.
Weird science.
It's the revolution.
I'm Kano.